The LA Lakers begin the night ninth in the Western Conference, 6-10 since LeBron James went down. Currently just a game and a half back of the, not even cross town. They're co-tenants. The LA Clippers, they're at Staples Center. That's where we find Sean Powell from NBA.com ahead of the Laker-Philadelphia 76er game tonight. Hello, Sean. Good to have you with us as always. First off, the Pelicans obviously will have final say where Anthony Davis goes if and when they trade him. But it is widely assumed that Rich Paul, the agent that AD shares with LeBron James, is orchestrating a move to the Lakers. How deep does Davis mania run in Los Angeles right now?
Well, people here are understandably excited, none of which, by the way, is being expressed by the Lakers because that would be tampering, right?
Of course, we can't have
so
that.
They don't want to give that kind of appearance, so it's kind of muted. But, you know, I wonder about how much of a distraction it is for Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram. I mean, they don't know next week, are they going to be passing the ball to LeBron James or Etuan Moore? I mean, these are young players who figured that they'd be part of the Laker near future and maybe distant future because, you know, all along, you know, they were being groomed to support LeBron James. And all of a sudden, it looks like the Lakers have veered over into the express lane.
Right.
And you wonder whether or not they're going to sacrifice some of their youth for Anthony Davis. I can't see how they can't.
And already you've got Lonzo Ball's people getting out to the media that he would prefer to go to a team without an established point guard. Everybody's jumping into the middle of this thing. LeBron James will miss his 17th straight game tonight. Two-part question here. How close is he to coming back? He's been practicing for a few days now. And secondly, what do the Lakers feel like they've learned about some of these other young players who they saw a lot the last couple of seasons but have had a chance to see over this extended run without the king on the floor?
Well, LeBron will probably return for the Clippers. I mean, he's been back. His practices have been limited. He had limited contact in his last practice, but, you know, reported no pain or anything that would give the Lakers any kind of indication that he's not on the right path. I would think that playing against the Clippers would be a good warm-up for the next game, which is going to be in Oakland against the Warriors. Of course, that's where this terror happened in the first place on Christmas Day when he got hurt. But as far as the young players, I think it's been a mixed bag. You know, suddenly the Lakers see they have a good young center in Zubac. I mean, he's played very well for them. Brandon Ingram has, you know, been hot and cold. Lonzo, of course, got hurt, so we don't really know the complete picture there. And Kyle Kuzma has done well as far as being a primary scorer. But again, I mean, you know, when LeBron comes back, that changes everything. So whatever they saw without LeBron really doesn't mean that much because when LeBron comes back, he goes back to controlling the ball, and all of a sudden the system is different.
Sean, Philadelphia is a team that actually benefited from a superstar asking to be traded. They traded some young depth to get into that situation with Jimmy Butler. How are they feeling now about the fit of Jimmy and Joel, and what does it sound like for them in terms of just their progress to this point?
I would say it's probably still a work in progress. You know, everyone's still trying to figure out their roles. I know Jimmy Butler had that little hiccup there where, you know, he had to talk to the coach about his role. And all this is, you know, ongoing. But the good news is that they still have another 25, 30 games to get it really right. I think they have a lot of confidence going into the post-All-Star break. They feel that there is cohesion. Of course, you know, once the playoffs begin and, you know, you get into a little bit of trouble and then all that goes out the window. But I think right now that the Sixers feel good about themselves. I think they would love to have an additional shooter. Now, whether or not they can pull something like that off at the trade deadline without parting with any of their nucleus remains to be seen. But I think when you look at this team right now, if they would just have another shooter on the floor like they had last season, then, you know, I think that they'd be something to, you know, a team to watch.
I remember last year they picked up Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova, both stretch guys for virtually nothing as just buyout guys. Unlikely to be able to do that 2 years in a row. Sean Powell with us from Los Angeles ahead of the 76ers and Lakers. Appreciate the time, Sean. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Guys, take me into the Laker locker room with all these young players who are obviously potential trade targets now with this Anthony Davis thing out there, whether it's next week, over the summer, etc. you know, it's easy to say, you know, it's a part of the game, it's a business, et cetera. But these are a lot of young guys who haven't been through this before.
I honestly believe that there were X number of players in that locker room that never gave a thought for a while that this could ever happen. I mean, they were on the Lakers. Wow, I'm with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then, wow, LeBron's here and he wins championships.
Right.
I have a chance to be on a run. And think about them. If their agents didn't caution them, they may have invested in a home in the LA area, thinking I'm going to be here the next 3, 4, 5 years for sure. And now all of a sudden the reality of this comes out when they're looking and seeing all the packages that people are putting together and, uh-oh, that's my name in there.
Right.
I could be out of here. Hits you all of a sudden, doesn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating. I actually think because so many of those kids have agents that would have explained to them that the timeline has changed once LeBron got there, to some degree, many of them have probably been waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I think it's possible that this is something that doesn't take them by surprise. I think it's something that many of them have realized is a possibility. And what's been significant for them, I think, is because of LeBron's absence, and you talked about this with Sean, they've been able to do what they do a little bit more and have sort of a freedom out there that they can just go play and every possession isn't going to be judged. I think it's easier to play in that environment. So they've gotten to showcase themselves a little bit. I think Lonzo Ball's camp coming out with word that he would not be comfortable in a certain situation speaks to the fact that this is a topic in that locker room and has been for quite some time.
And by the way, that's just the camp getting ahead of things and doing its job, right? You signal to whoever who's listening.
Sure.
Would like to go here, would not like to go there as
in
much.
a matter of speaking.
It may or may not actually work, but it's worth a shot. Drew Holiday and the Pelicans getting set to go against the Rockets in Houston at the top of the hour on TNT. Drew Holiday getting set to go in Houston tonight in the middle of what could be maybe his best season as a pro. He's had some really good ones, former All-Star in the Eastern Conference as well. Hasn't shown up in the win column, and the Pelicans are in danger of falling out of relevance in the West. Here's Holiday with Caron Butler ahead of a players-only Tuesday night.
Here with Drew Holiday, can you just talk to me about your mindset coming in here playing the Rockets today?
Right, really good team. We've all seen what James has been doing. Do our best to try to corral him and stop him from scoring 40 points. Run him off the three-point line. That's what they love to do, and also keep James off the free throw line. Yeah.
So I guess you're going to get the first crack at him, or obviously a crack at him. So how would you slow him down, being one of the best two-way guys in the game?
Honestly, just try to keep him guessing. Sometimes play him up close, make him drive. Sometimes play off of him. Try to be handsy, but in a way that it doesn't cause fouls, and really rely on my teammates. Drive down there into the big to be able to block or make him pass it out for a three, and from there we're going to have to rotate.
I know this is one of the tough times for the organization right now with AD news coming out. You know, you said that based upon him and his future, 90% of the reason you was here because of him. Can you just speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, he's top 3 in the world. His athletic ability, what he can do as an athlete, as a player, even a friend. I've been with him for 6 years, so I feel like for me, coming around a talent of that caliber was kind of once in a lifetime, and we had a good thing going. So, but on that note, man, Anthony's doing everything he's doing best for himself, and I'm not mad at that. He's the ultimate professional. He still comes here and works, and still cheers for his team. So I'm happy for him.
Last question: does that change anything with your future going forward?
As of right now, no. I'm here to play basketball. Today, specifically, I'm here to try to beat the Houston Rockets. So go out there, give it my all, and try to exhaust myself and play as hard as I can.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, bro. Guys.
Interesting thoughts from Drew Holiday there, and got to deal with that guy tonight. James Harden and the Rockets. Chris Paul back in the lineup. They've won 3 in a row and 4 of their last 5 as they get set to go against the Pels. Chris Paul played 25 minutes the other night after returning from that hamstring injury. 12 points, 5 boards, 6 assists on 4 of 8 shooting. He is back tonight as the Rockets take on the Pelicans. Here's Mike D'Antoni on his point guard and his second game back.
Well, I think we have to do it that way. I don't think Chris enjoys that. He'd rather stay in and play, but we need to be cautious here next couple weeks, and then he'll eventually get back up to 30, 31, where we'd like to keep him.
Have you ever dealt with something like they've got going where it's out there, what the limbo that they seem to be in now?
No, not really. No, it's kind of odd.
How tough of a thing is that
Well,
to keep the focus?
That's tough. You'd have to be inside the locker room, and I can't. This never happened to me, and I'm not over there, so I will have no clue.
Even just the game or two before a trade deadline can be somewhat tense.
Well, most players get a little nervous about them, but it happens to everybody in the sense of everybody knows that it's a business, and that's part of the deal. But you got to keep focused and get through it. And I'm sure there's a lot of players like to get to the other side of the deadline so that they can stay at home, but that's just part of business.
When you think about what you guys have done, in a sense, adding Austin Rivers, adding Kenneth Free, kind of making deadline deals in the middle of the season, have really worked out, have they not?
Oh, it's really worked out, and especially with all the injuries that both those guys have saved us and got us into a position where we are now. We've added them to a pretty good team, so as soon as we get everybody back, we'll see what we got, but it looks promising for sure.
Do you guys, is it too early to get progress updates on Clint, how he's doing and everything?
He's laying in the sun, I'm sure. He's just out there in California somewhere. It's something he has to heal. He'll be ready to go when it's time.
Thursday, we learned the starters for the All-Star game next month in Charlotte. No major surprises for either East or West. In the Western Conference, Steph Curry, James Harden, of course, Paul George, Kevin Durant, and the leading vote getter, LeBron James. The reserves come out Thursday on TNT. The coaches will cast the votes that count, but helpfully, we're here to make our choices as well, in case the coaches aren't sure. Actually, they've probably already cast
Helpfully, we are here.
Helpfully.
I don't know helpful to whom, but
we're really a service. We provide a service here on NBA TV, right?
That's dangerous. Very dangerous.
We're here to pitch in wherever we can.
Yes.
All right, so here's who we chose for the other 7 spots in the Western Conference. And there's some disagreement, maybe more disagreement than I would have predicted. We all agree on Anthony Davis, if he's available to play, Nikola Jokic, Damian Lillard, and Russell Westbrook. I went DeRozan, Karl Anthony Towns, and Klay Thompson. Czar, you've got LaMarcus Aldridge, as does Griff. You both have Rudy Gobert. And Czar, you have Donovan Mitchell. Griff went with Drew Holiday. Please explain yourselves.
Coach, I'll go first.
Okay.
So the reason I've got Drew Holiday in that last spot versus Klay Thompson is that I think Drew has been very quietly since last season one of the most underappreciated stars in our league. He plays both sides of the ball with equal passion. He's been essential for them and really their most consistent player. They've had to play 9 games to this point, or he's had to play 9 games to this point without AD. I think they had a lot of change from the time that Boogie left the lineup, and all that's happened is Drew has consistently gotten better and better and better. Right. And I feel like now's the time to reward that.
Well, there are names that were tough for me to leave off in that spot. Klay Thompson is a name you might consider. Doncic, if you want, in that position.
Yeah.
And then you could consider DeRozan also in that position.
Who I did.
Okay, so for me, I thought the resurgence all of a sudden after the really difficult start that Utah had, and then when you looked at the imbalance in home and road schedule, it was like at some point they got a lot of home games coming up here. And this guy, I thought, was responsible for kind of leading the charge to get them back to the type of team they were at the end of last season.
I went with DeRozan. I think he's been their best player over the course of the season so far, and the added playmaking duties are impressive to me. In fairness to me, I picked Karl Anthony Towns before the Timberwolves were swept in the home-and-home by Rudy Gobert and the Utah Jazz. I don't know if that would have changed my vote or not, but I think he's been really effective since the Jimmy Butler mess was sorted out in Minnesota. And Klay Thompson has been, after the early season slump by his standards, has been pretty great here the last 6 weeks. And to me, he's just one of those guys, a two-way player who's just an all-star. Like, unless he's terrible,
but let me ask
he's
you
an all-star.
What about Karl Anthony Towns from game 1 up to game 30 or whenever the Butler thing
Not
and
as
coaching
good.
was
Yep.
replaced? What about those games? Because now they're 2 games below 500 as a team.
Not as good.
Okay.
Clearly.
So does that make you an all-star?
Well, I mean, it's the same argument like for Drew Holiday, for instance. If you were going to think about where they are in the standings and whatnot, they're not good enough but he has played at an all-star level for much of the year.
To me, it's got to be the majority of the season that you've played thus far up to the balloting ending. And then I also look at records. Are teams winning? Because if you're an all-star player, shouldn't you help your team?
You should be affecting your team winning. I agree with that. And so almost, I think everybody I picked aside from Towns is on a playoff team.
And I think that's why Klay Thompson not being on my team is the hardest, because I don't think it should just be that you've played well in the majority of the games.
Sure.
I think you have to play both sides of the court. And I think not having Klay be on the team is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
And if we're picking players I would rather have, I might rather have Klay than several people that we're going to have in the All-Star game.
Yeah.
But
that's not the question.
Right. But I think relative to Drew Holiday, relative to Towns, relative to Donovan Mitchell, these are all guys that are carrying teams to various different degrees, and that really matters. I think for me, leaving Klay off was more difficult than anybody else because I think defensively he's essential to what they do.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the Eastern Conference. Blake Griffin will return to the game for the first time as a Piston. Kemba Walker is a first-time starter. They'll be joined by Kyrie Irving, Joel Embiid, and leading vote-getter Giannis Antetokounmpo. They all made the starters cut. Our reserves, I have not seen yet. From you guys, I know who my reserves are.
I hid mine out, to be honest. I didn't want you to see them.
Well, I'm excited.
That's all right. I can tell you this, though. The picture of the West All-Stars featuring two guys that left from the East to the West within the last year sure makes the West look awfully deep. I mean, those are 5 MVP candidate finalists all in one image. That's an amazing starting lineup.
And likewise, the East was very difficult to find enough names in the end.
It was.
It was. I got through the first 5 of my reserves, and then the last 2 was kind of a toss-up between 4 or 5 different guys in the Eastern Conference because of what I'll call parity among performers.
Ooh, very well nuanced
So far.
parity.
Thank you
I
very
like
much.
that.
We all agreed Bradley Beal, Blake Griffin, Victor Oladipo, and Ben Simmons should be reserves. Griffin's already he's going to make it for sure. Kyle Lowry, Nikola Vucevic, and I picked Spencer Dinwiddie, even though he's hurt now, over D'Angelo Russell as my Nets representative. You guys went respectively Lowry, Pascal Siakam, Chris Middleton, Griff, Jimmy Butler, Vucevic, and Chris Middleton. I loved Middleton for the All-Star game last year, but I think he had a better argument to make.
Probably did.
But based on the record and the fact that he's been a good player for them, I have no issue with that.
Yeah, Siakam, for me, I thought this young man has just taken huge steps in becoming a better player in the NBA. And, you know, their record for the team, obviously, there are a number of guys there that have done a very commendable job. So I just like watching him the whole time and how I think he's upped his game. I thought he deserved that responsibility. 2 guys that I left off that I really wrestled with. D'Angelo Russell, okay, has been good for the last month or so. He's been good. But in the beginning, okay, you had a guy, Dinwiddie, who played a heck of a season up to that point. So I was like, well, does 1 month worth make you an all-star player?
Right.
And I've said all along with D'Angelo Russell, he has to become more consistent to be a legitimate big-time player, and I'm waiting to see that. He's done it for a month now. Vucevic, love what he can do, love his talent.
Yep.
Why is Orlando 10 games below 500?
I don't know.
I don't
know. I went with Dinwiddie over Russell for that reason, by the way, because he's been the guy they've gone to at the end of games more often than not. In fact, you remember early in the season there were times when Russell wouldn't even be on the floor at the end of close games for the Brooklyn Nets.
You know, it's interesting. So to answer your question, Vucevic in 10 games under 500, the reason is because he's their best playmaker.
Right.
You're going to be 10 games under 500 when your best playmaker is a center and you don't have other players around him making ancillary plays. So I think they are a few steps away from being highly competitive. I think they have a very clear theme. But what Coach Clifford has done is really run everything through Vooch in much the same way to a lesser degree than Denver has around Jokic.
Yep.
And so I think the fact that Vooch has that kind of skill set makes him really intriguing. The other reason I wanted to make sure he's up there because he's a big trade target. Just to make sure everybody understands. I want to lead into our trade deadline programming with that name in everyone's mind.
Intriguing is a good word because he figures to be intriguing to a lot of teams.
No question.
Next week when the trade deadline happens. There you go. I think we've solved this. We've worked all this out.
Helpful. That's what we were.
Helpful. LeBron James will get the first pick in the draft, of course. The captains have to start with the starters, then they can go to the reserves. So who is LeBron picking first?
So I'm not allowed to say Anthony Davis, right?
Because he can't,
yeah,
because that would be the...
I would probably say...
that would be the intriguing answer, yeah.
I wonder if it would be a point guard that he may have played with once before in his career. Or could it be Kevin Durant, who he has great respect for? I'm going to go Durant.
You're going to go Durant, okay.
Did he pick Durant first last year?
That's why I thought he did last year.
I don't remember.
So that's why I went that way.
That's interesting.
I think he
I'm
may
going to
have.
say that it's going to be one of those guys from the Western Conference photo. I'm going to take Steph Curry as his first pick.
I'm kind of leaning that way myself.
Yeah, I think he's intrigued by the notion of playing with someone who shoots the ball that way from that deep in an all-star game.
Right.
Because it literally could be dribble handoff from 40 feet, and those could be some fun assists to get.
Yeah. Cannot pick Anthony Davis. That would be fun.